So we're in the middle of, well, we're finished. We're holding chapter 7 now. Let's turn our books to chapter 7. That's on page 51. So again, let's just briefly and quickly read the chptr on page 50. Chptr. The koichas ha'atzmim within each of the essential powers, be'esh u'mayim, using as an analogy fire and water, there is the element of the other one within the main one. I use the words, the dominant gene versus the recessive gene, that concept. Uvechol davar. And the Rebbe says this is true in every matter, every element of existence. There is a recessive element of the three other elements, right? This Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Ofer. Fire, wind, Eish, Ruach, Mayim, water, Ofer, dust. And the Rambam speaks about it. By the way, this is not a chiddush of the Baal Tanya, chapter 1 of Tanya. This is life. This is reality. And the Rambam already speaks about it, and many other holy books preceding the Baal Tanya speak about it. When we go through the process of division and we reveal this element, this recessive element within it, then the two elements can combine, can join. I also want to make another remark. I discussed this with my chaverim, my friends online yesterday, and we're looking into if there are early sources to the word Divrei Elokim Chayim. You remember I spoke about that yesterday. Dach. So, so far we have not. We're looking for it first in Chabad sources. What's the earliest Chabad source that's quoted and used? We're not sure that the Alter Rebbe in his discourses, that we're not sure if we find that language. So it's an ongoing research that we're doing. Just wanted to let you know. What we do find is the word drush or drushim. The Alter Rebbe's Maimorim, as referred to by the early Hasidim, his Hasidim and subsequent generations of 200 years ago, etc., refer to what we call today Maimorim, discourses, as drushim. What does the word drushim come from? Medrash, exposés, expansions, sermonizing. One of my chaverim made a very good point. He says if you take a look at Likutei Torah, and many of the Maimorim, it's like Medrash. For example, there's a Maimor, the Alter Rebbe mentions Mariv Arovim, right? We say at night in the blessing, in the evening blessing, the first blessing when in the evening service called Mariv. So Mariv Arovim means kind of the dark, the darkening. It's dark. It's dark outside, and with praising God for bringing darkness, etc. But Alter Rebbe says the word Mariv Arovim, and again, it's not his chiddush, but he mentions it in this context. In a Maimer, means sweet, from the word arivut, not arivut as being responsible for each other, guarantors. That's another taich. I don't know if he brings that there. But Mariv Arava means you take darkness and you transform darkness, Moshe, and you make sweetness of it. That's what we call a drash. That's not literal. And he just slips it in and says it in a line or two and then goes on, right? So my friend pointed out how you have lots of that in those early discourses, And maybe that's one of the reasons why it was referred to as drushim, from the word medrash. I personally don't think that that's the end all. That's why I don't think that's the reason, but it could include it. I think the word drushim is much more than just a medrash. Not that the medrash is not adequate enough, but medrash is nigla de Torah, is the revealed part of Torah. Chassidus is the pnimius HaTorah, the inner aspect of Torah. So to say that a Maimer Chassidus of a Chassidish Rebbe, in this case the Balatanya, is a medrash, is a drash, it's like a Magid coming to a shul and giving a drasha. A Maimer Chassidus is not a drasha. Now, again, I'm saying clearly that, again, we don't know how did people refer. Let's say you were in the Beis Medrash when the Alter Rebbe said a what we call a mimer, but then it was called a drush. Maybe they said, "Oh, the Balatanya, the tzaddik, is going to say a drasha." I wouldn't be surprised that commoners, regular people who weren't very learned, that's the way they would speak, right? It's like today. If you're not Chabad, you don't know the difference between a sicha and a mimer. So many people have asked over the years, and probably you've asked yourself, what's the difference between a sicha and a mimer? Because those are two words today that are used in Chabad circles. The Rebbe said a sicha and the Rebbe said a mimer. What's the difference? Sicha means a talk, mimer means a discourse. Well, in Chabad lingo, the Chabad lexicon, a sicha means when he spoke in the regular way we all speak. Of course, it was Torah, and there was a direction and a beginning and a middle and an end, but it was conversational. Sicha means conversational, right? Yitzchak went out to the field, lo suach sicha. What does it mean Yitzchak went to the field, lo suach sicha? To have a conversation with God. He spoke to Hashem. It was afternoon, mincha time, and he spoke to Hashem at mincha time in the field. A mimer in today's, I don't mean just today, in the Chabad ethos is something else. It's this angelic and more than angelic, godly. This is the belief and the tradition. That revelation that God revealed to the tzaddik, and the tzaddik opened his mouth and it came out on a certain day and a certain Shabbos and a certain Yom Tov, and then we study it called the mimer. So it's not just a drasha. In other words, a drasha is simplifying what a Chabad Rebbe taught. A Chabad Rebbe wasn't a rabbi. He wasn't giving a standard sermon that you get from your rabbis Shabbos during Kriyas HaTorah or Friday night, right? In the Karl Shul, for example, they have a five minute short talk. The rabbi, someone else, says, very nice. That's a drusha. TMT. Okay. What is it? Why TMT?
2-minute Torah.
2-minute Torah. Okay. That's more of a drasha. A Chabad Rebbe is not saying drushes. But nevertheless, with everything I said, you should know that it was called, the Maimarim were called at that time, drushim. Drushim. So my friend thought maybe because the Alter Rebbe's style uses medrash-like words, ideas, like I just gave you an example of Mariv Harovim, right? And I'm saying that it could include that. I hear it, but I don't think that's the reason why it was called Drushim. Anyway, let's go back to the text. Page 51. V'hinei keinu b'Hechaltzu shebechochma. Now the Rebbe says, so too, just as we discussed this idea, that there is a division within fire and water, etc. That really is one. If you go back to the source, so too is regarding the division that takes place in Chochmah, in the component of the mind called Chochmah, in comparison to Bina. Shehu masha'oiseh ha'yizchalkus b'chol davar muskul. Chochmah makes the ability. It's the potential of creating the division and compartments within intellect. Shebetchilas is galusoi, the initial state of an idea, the creative flash. Who kinekuda klolis? It's like a general point. Belishum eschalkus protim, without any details. And therefore, who therefore it is contrary to a second type of intellect, which seems contrary from this first idea. So in other words, within the first aspect of Chochmah, which is the creative flash, this creative idea seems opposite a second idea. And through this component of Chochmah and Seichel, it divides the idea into many details. Gam bekam, next page, 52. Gam bekam dvorim hofchim umenagdim. Not only does it divide it into differences, but it also divides it into opponents, opposition, things that intellectually are against each other. So they're not just different, but opposite. And as we said earlier, from the perspective of the essence, there is within everything it and its opposite. So too in every intellectual idea, Hechach means you're forced to say, you must say that there are many ideas, different ideas and opposite ideas, one from the other. And when you divide very well the details within this idea, it must be that this idea will express itself in details, in various kinds of details, different from each other. There is a logic and reasoning to each position. Or this one reasoning mechayiv obligates kind of that you can explain it in two different ways. Let me tell you what he's saying here in simple English. You can have an idea, and in your own mind, you could take the idea one way, you could take it the other way, and not only are those two ways possibly different each other, but opposite each other. Right? When you come up with an idea, and we see this. A person has an idea, and he conceives it a certain way, and someone else says, I see it completely different, or completely opposite the way you understand it. So just as it is by two people, it's also within your own mind. In other words, the creative idea is wholesome because it includes opposites. This is again and again the theme that he's mentioning here. And if it's pure, good, correct intellect, that is the protocol of intellect. The protocol of intellect is that it lends itself to opposites. Yes, sir.
I could see how this makes total sense if you take an idea and you take two different people, and from that one idea, each goes in a different direction. Within a person, I don't see how that person can have the idea and himself take it in two different ideas, right? So we say Elo ve'Elodim Elokim Chaim, right? And we see all the time that Tanaim are arguing on a pasuk or arguing on a word.
Right.
But within the person himself, you're saying that this is within the person himself. He could take it both ways.
Yeah, and how is it that Elo ve'el Divrei Elokim Chaim and the rabbis and sages are arguing with each other? They heard this from a teacher. How is it that each one walks away with a different view of what his teacher said? It's because the idea as given by the teacher lends itself to two ways. We're not talking about if someone says black, white, yes, no. We're talking about an inyan seichel, okay? We're talking about an intellectual idea. An intellectual idea has the ability to go to the right and the left. And the more it's stripped of the box that's created by Bina and Das, the two other components of the mind, the more pure it is. And if it's pure, purity includes opposites. That's the point over here. So why wouldn't that be true within a person himself? I know I haven't given you...
You'd be, not schizophrenic isn't the word, but you'd have different, right? You have a conception, right? So when I enunciate that or elucidate that, two other people can have a different idea of what I meant, but I know what I meant. I meant one thing.
Right, but if I hear you correctly,
Unless I'm trying to make a double entendre.
1 second. You're giving an example the way it's been developed by Bina and Das. And then I agree with you. We're talking about in Chochmah. In the state of the mind that's not yet developed. In that state of the mind, there can be opposites. In the state of the mind that's Bina and Das, which is what you, I believe, refer to, even though you didn't use those words, there you're right. That's what Bina does. What does Bina do? Bina articulates and develops. So if you articulate an idea, this is the idea. I've articulated it. But I'm talking about in a state pre-articulation, pre-development, which is what Hasidus Chabad calls Chochmah. In that state, opposites exist. And opposites must exist, and Hashem, and it's very, very good that they exist. But they live together in peace. See, I know, I believe I really understand what's bothering you, because it bothers me too. I know the question. But you have to really focus in on this nekuda of what we're talking about. We're talking about Chochmah as a creative idea in the state before it's been developed, just idea.
Can we use the term pre-conscious? In the pre-conscious state, the idea is, contains both.
Yeah, I guess so. If you're using the word in the sense, if you're using the word conscious as Bina and Das,
right? Yes.
then you could use that. Yeah, you could use that. Yeah, I would say yes. Okay, let's go back again. Maybe later you guys will read some of the notes and maybe you'll see some more clarification. Let's go further. And he says, "She'os einen magdim zeh lo zeh." But he adds now, in the state of Chochmah, what is later perceived as opposites are not opposites. Adarabah. Hey, machzikim, mechaskim, umesayim, zelazeh, they support each other. You hear that? The argument to the right and the argument to the left are supportive of each other. And through this method specifically, nitvas etzle ha'inyan b'toiv moed, the idea is grasped by the person very well. He says in Yiddish, Zeya rein, very pure, klar, and clear. The teifes oise mikol tzadu pina shabai, and you grab it from all sides. Therefore, he's able to join and attach itself to another idea, because they're not opposite each other. Adam, the chptr, repeating himself, Messiah and they support each other. Next page, 54. This ability to bring together different parts, which seem to be initially disparate, that should join and should unite and join together. And what should join? Opposites. This is where he goes back to his point that he made a few chapters ago. It's due to their humility, their nullification, their subservience, their bittul. As the Chazal say, a person should always be as soft as a stalk and not as hard as a cedar tree. The dover akosh is something that's hard, and mitzad ho avius vayeshu due to his coarseness and his ego. Ein boy netil shum tzad. He doesn't bend to any side, right? It's very strong. He stands. Aval dover arach, but something that is soft like a stalk. Mitzad harakas shaboy betzem, because in its very essence it's soft. It could bend to each side. That's the analogy. Now comes the moral. Using this as an example, we'll understand the concept of meichim. Due to the bittul. They divide every idea and every revelation into many details. That's the comparison to the stalk bending to each side. It can bend intellectually to different sides, even opposite sides. And through this we have the inclusiveness and the joining of opposites to become one. And it's known, this is the ultimate type of inclusion and unity. Mark, you hear this? When many details unite them together, and not only they unite, but they help each other. To the point of the Chaim Zev, you don't even recognize anymore who's the head and who's the foot. You come into a shul, the rabbi's there, the gabai's there, the Talmud Chacham is there, the successful bit, right? You realize there's a point of unity, everyone's the same. Everyone's the same. You don't see the differences, and from there you work backwards. You see the achdus. You hear that? Boys, that a level. Continuing. The reason why you don't see who's the head and who's the end is because they help each other. Next page. This is the concept that one receives from the other. The first idea forces kind of the second idea. It compels that should be the second idea. Who amitis achdus is the true idea of unity. She'ein kan hofchim klal. There are no opposites at all. And therefore, this unity is much more than the unity of the faculties as they are in existence, and just that they are absorbed within the essence. And this is, he's making a difference between the two levels of the faculties. The reason why the inclusiveness of the faculties within the essence, they're not recognizable, but they exist. But if you look from the perspective of the essence, not from the perspective of the faculties, they don't have any unity. On the contrary, they're opposite each other. And if they were to come out in the essence, they'll be opposite each other. But here in the essence, they unite until to the point where they aren't opposite at all and opposing each other. They help. Again, it repeats the same point. Here in the essence, it's the true unity. Timtza, what we understand from the above, the he says that the division created from that aspect of the mind, it specifically causes Iskalus Amiti's true inclusiveness. This concept that we find Chazal say, people have different opinions. Their opinions are not the same. In Kedusha, in holiness, we'll explain later, the Rebbe says how specifically in Kedusha they unite. Im Kain Adarabba, next page, 58. Yes, there is an advantage. The fact that many details unite and become one. Right? What does it say? Lokam nikmas b'shem Hashem. That's the yichud, the unity of the holy name of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name. That many details should join to unite, leaves echad mamish to be one. Canal commission is bud, as we said earlier, and we'll explain more later. The kitzur will do on Monday, because tomorrow we'll do a fabrengen. But I just want to say that went a little fast because he repeats it like 2 or 3 times. It's definitely like Isser. It's definitely a new twist, a very interesting twist, and it's very unconventional. And it would be good to find a good example like you shared. So let's think about this.
It also reminds me. It reminds me of Milchemes Shel Torah, right? When 2 Talmidei Chachamim argue and fight and mamash like screaming at each other, the Milchemes Shel Torah, but they're totally unified together. We say that the Talmidei Chachamim bring peace into the world. They can look like the greatest enemies, and then they're finished with their argument in Torah, and they're the closest of friends.
Right. I want to.
This reminds me of.
Well, what it reminds me of is something that you guys experience there on a daily basis in Eretz Yisrael. How do we bring together the Charedim and what they call the Chilonim? You understand? And I told you, the Rebbe told me this years ago regarding Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. He saw it with such achdus that he chastised me that I was giving credence to the differences, not to the institutions, but just that there's a Reformed Jew. No, there isn't. There's a Jew who happens to pray at a Reformed temple. So too with the Chilonim and the Charedim and all this, we're all Yidden. The fact that some act this way or that way, yeah, it's a problem.
In Hitler didn't care, Yimach Shemo, if you were conservative, reform, or orthodox.
And neither did Hamas. Chevra, we'll see everyone tomorrow for bringing. Chai Elu, great day. Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe's Yom Haledes. We'll talk tomorrow. Zai Gezu. Take care. Bye-bye.